In this tutorial, I'm going to take a closer look at some of the debugging features that are available in SCAR. Now, a lot of you are not aware that these are here, or you simply don't use them, but they can be very useful. I'm going to write up a quick example here. So we're going to create a variable I, which is an integer. We're going to assign a value of 5 to that, and we're going to write out, let's say 10 divided by 5 minus I. Now we all know that this is going to throw an exception because you're dividing by 0, and so it throws a floating point division by 0 exception. Now this is a very simple example, so imagine that this right line is something very complex, has a lot of things tied into it, and this I is 5. Let's imagine that's like 1,000 lines of code. So you're not really sure what happened. You get the exception here. You don't really see what exactly made it divide by 0. So what you could do is you could place a breakpoint here, and you may have stumbled upon this sometime. So you just click on the left side of the gutter next to the line numbers here, and the red dot and the red line on your script will show up. And now if you run the script, it will pause exactly at that line, and now you get this variable tab here, which shows you the content of, well, every variable in the script. Now, if you were, for example, pausing inside of a procedure, it would also show you the local variables. So now you've got the content of every variable, and you can see, oh yes, I is 5 here, and that would cause our error. So if you press play now, you just resume the script and it throws the error. So that's basically a way you can examine the state of a script at a certain position. So I'm going to give you another example of this and use some more features. So I'm going to create a loop here. Let's say for I is 1 to 10 do, and we're going to write out the contents of I. Now if we run this, we get our 1 to 10 written out in the debug box. And what I want to do now is, and maybe I'm going to add a little break here just to show you, let's say 500 milliseconds, and we're going to put an end there. Okay, so this will write it out slower with half a second of a pause in between every number. And I'm going to just place a breakpoint on the right line there. And if we run this now, we can see nothing has been written out yet. And I is 1, so if we press play now, 1 is written out, and it pauses again at the breakpoint. Now another feature of SCAR is that you can place a breakpoint while you're running the script. So if I press play now, it will pause on the wait. So the 2 has been written out by the right line. I can also remove breakpoints during the execution, and that's a pretty useful example. Now another fun feature is the step into and step over buttons. Now you may have seen these before, never knew what they really did. If you press step over, you jump to the next line in the current procedure. So in this case, that's the wait. I can just remove the breakpoint now. And if you keep pressing step over, it will keep jumping to the next line it has to execute. So that's basically how that works. So now that's over. The step into requires a little more work. So we're going to create a new procedure. Let's go to write it. We'll add a parameter. So let's say we'll call it int, and that's an integer. So we're going to place the write line here. So this is basically a stub for write line. Okay, so if we run this now, same thing happens as before, but you use the write it procedure as a sort of gateway to write line. Now I can throw in the breakpoint again, and so I press run, it stops on the breakpoint, and let's say I remove the breakpoint, go step over, so same thing happens as before. Now press step into. Now step into, what it does is basically it will jump to the next line, just like step over in your current procedure, if you don't jump into another procedure. Now if I press step over, it will jump to the wait again. If I press step into, it will jump into the write line, write it procedure we made, and it will resume debugging in there. So now we can see inside of here we've got the I variable, the global variable, which displays 3, and we've got the int parameter, which here also holds 3 right now. So if we just place a breakpoint back here, it will jump out of it again and end up at the wait. So step over just jumps over it, step into goes into the procedure. Now those are some pretty useful debugging features. It allows you to basically very systematically debug your script, see how it's executed. Now another useful feature, and we'll have to go into our script menu here, is the run to cursor. Now what this does is basically it just places an invisible breakpoint and it stops there once and just only once. So in this case we had our cursor on the write it method here, and it runs up to there. There's no breakpoint, so if I press play, it doesn't break again until I place a breakpoint. So that's basically how run to line works, well, run to cursor. So for example, I can also place it inside of the write it method and run to cursor, and it'll end up there. Now a final thing I'd like to show you relating to this. Yes, and well, this may also be useful. For example, if I place a breakpoint there, you can right click the variables and copy the name or the value of it. So sometimes if you have a very long array or something, it won't really fit into the value box here. Well, you can resize it, but still it could be a lot longer, so you can just copy all of the contents. So it will also be cut off at 100 characters. So that's that. And the final thing I'd like to show you, and I'm going to make a new file for this, and I'm going to just move this write it method into there and save it in my includes folder, and let's just call it test include, and I'm going to include it here. So we're just basically moving our previous line of code into that include. So we don't have to save this because it's in the includes folder, so it should find it. If we run it, works just fine. This is basically to show you how you can use these debugging features in includes. Now, because an include is not a script, you can't run it. You can't use run to cursor, because it basically just places a breakpoint virtually and calls run, but that won't work obviously. However, you can use breakpoints, so you just place a breakpoint there, you go into your script, and you press run, and it will automatically jump into the tab where you place the breakpoint when it gets to it, and it will pause there. If you press, for example, step over, you end up back into your main include here, main script file, sorry. So that's basically how you can use these features for includes as well. So you can use all of them except for the run to cursor here. So it just executes further as it would normally. So that's basically how these debugging features work, and I hope you learned something from this.